Up until 2008, the only way you could buy oil in the world was in London and New York using dollars. And then I related to all this war talk that we were going to have in 2008 about going to war with Iran. That had nothing to do with Muslim fundamentalism or terrorism. It has to do with, as it always does, oil. So now here we have, because Iran opened up a oil bourse on the island of Kish, where they now sell oil for just about every currency out there. In fact, India is now buying oil not using dollars, but using their own currency, the rupee. And I relate this new Hong Kong Mercantile Exchange as another, death by 1,000 cuts, which is the first article I mentioned about the Hong Kong Mercantile Exchange. And it's just another step of the world stepping away from the dollar. They're not going to do this in big brash moves. They're doing this very systematically, very slowly, as to not to startle us. But at the end of the day, our way of life is coming to an end. The dollar will not survive. And this is a great way for Asia to, all these contracts, the initial set of contracts are dollar denominated, and they're only going to sell, 32 ounces of gold contracts where they can take physical delivery. But this is going to expand. They will have silver contracts, they will have grain contracts, and I believe the ultimate, coup de grace is, oil contract. Because if China or Asia is able to dump dollars in their own market and buy real physical assets, that is a huge shift of power away from the Western powers. And then one other point I wanted to make in that article was that China does something that the Western elite don't do.
They execute corrupt people.
Absolutely. So I listed three a CEO, I think a commodities trader, and the head of their FDA. They executed them. I mean, can you imagine if we actually did that? And I wrote in the article, I said, that gives me confidence that there's not a bunch of trickery going on and that it's an honest market when people's lives are on the line. We used to have death penalty for counterfeiting, and yet now with the Federal Reserve, they do that all day long.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. And, Matt Taibbi has done amazing work talking about the corruption in the system, talking about, Hank Paulson at Goldman Sachs and holding the Congress hostage for the, multi-billion-dollar bailouts. And you're right. There is no rule of law. There is no repercussion for that sort of wrongdoing and that sort of criminality in this society. However, what people need to keep in mind, and that you've done such a good job reminding us of, is that now the whole world is in on the gold and silver game, and it's not just under the control of the Anglo-American Empire. And what you write in this article is that Asia can take physical delivery of gold in Asia and outside the hands of this criminal empire. And you're absolutely right. This may be the light at the end of the tunnel.
Could be. And another point, I don't think I touched on in the article, there was the rumors of all those tungsten gold bars. They were delivered in Hong Kong, and that's where they found it out. So I think this is just another step, and there's been cases where the LBMA, refused to give physical delivery, and they had to settle for dollars. And these are the kind of games that the rest of the world is tired of. They're tired of the corruption. They're tired of the banking system, and what they're more tired of is how the banking system funds all these wars and all these tyrannical regimes. There is a huge shift coming in this world, and so few people are ready for it. And knowing that we don't have any justice system makes it even more imperative that you protect yourself with physical silver. I mean, that to me is the best reason to own it, is because it has no counterparty risk. You have a lloydial title. You have, king's title to it. So few assets out there have that.
No, you're absolutely right. And people, I've seen a lot of comments on different videos that people have done about, the price of silver. A lot of people are now under the impression, a lot of sheeple, here's what gets me, a lot of sheeple think that they're right now. The people that don't understand the things that we've just spoken about and don't understand monetary history and don't understand physical silver and gold, don't understand any of this, they think, the sheeple think, that they're right about silver and gold, and that silver was in a bubble and it's just crashed. I can't tell you how many people have in my daily life have said, "How's your silver and gold treating you now?" That they feel like there's a one up there because they've seen this silver collapse, and they're convinced that it was in a bubble. So the powers that be have done a great job continuing to brainwash the populace with this latest takedown.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously been probably one of the most vocal and aggressive pro-silver guys out there recently. I mean, I've stepped on a couple landmines, and, I believe passionately in owning physical silver, and that's all I've ever talked about. I've never talked about silver mining stocks, SLV, anything other than owning physical silver. So even today, a lot of the people who have listened to me, who may have even bought it at $50, don't mind, because I wrote to them when the first thing that went down. I said, I just looked at some of my silver stash, and it still looks like the greatest investment of all time. Nothing has changed. And one of the things that I try to relate to people is, and I do this in the Silver Bullet and the Silver Shield, but I also laid out in a specific article called a historical case for $960 silver. Mm-hmm. And the idea there is that throughout all of history, you can go back into the Bible, Roman soldiers, and even half of the world today, 12 hours of hard human labor throughout all of history was usually valued at 1/10 of an ounce of silver. And you can check this out. It's pretty easy to understand. Even in the world today, they always say, most people live on $2 a day. Well, that's about 1/10 of an ounce of silver. And if you start to put a historical perspective on that number, if we took $8 an hour in the United States, minimum wage for hard human labor, and understand that really meant 12 hours of labor, throughout all of history and half of the world, the implied value of that 1/10 of an ounce of silver is $96. So it doesn't take much to see that silver should be valued at $960. And then when the silver, all the people started crying, oh, silver's at 50, it's at its bubble top again. Even if you use the rigged government numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, silver would have to be at $143 today to be at that bubble in 1980 inflation-adjusted terms. And if you use shadow stats, which is a more accurate measurement of inflation, you would have to be at $450 an ounce of silver to be close to what it was back in 1980. So for people to be crying that silver went from 50 to 35, when by any measure of rationality it should be much, 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 much higher, I don't get it.
Yeah. No, you're right. I can't let the manipulation and the paper leverage go. I bring it up constantly because I think it's key. And the 100-to-1 or multiples of 100-to-1 paper manipulation that was admitted to at the CFTC hearing in March of 2010 by Jeff Christian. Yeah, and now Andrew Maguire has actually proven with his quantifiable evidence that it's at least 45-to-1, but many of us think it's many more factors than that. It's a key to this story, and we've just seen it in this recent takedown when you note 8 billion ounces of paper, silver traded hands in a week. It's impossible. It's paper. It's nonsense. So, folks, buy physical. Well, Chris, we just can't thank you enough for your time. Why don't you tell us how we can find you on the Internet? You've got all those crazy dashes in your URL. So tell us how we can find you on the Internet. I'll link to it below. And also tell us about the Sons of Liberty Academy.
Sure. I've been writing publicly on a blog called don't-tread-on.me. For about 4 months now. I've, obviously been writing a lot of works. I don't write solely about silver. I try to question everything to help people understand how the world really works. But essentially, that is just a public forum of a much, much larger project that I spent 6 years creating called the Sons of Liberty Academy. And you can go to sonsoflibertyacademy.com, and it's the ultimate resource I've ever, that I've ever seen.
Well, it's been it's your life's work out there for free, right?
Yeah, and I've just made it for free. It's been well received, and it really covers, I put it to you this way. If I should die today and I could not talk to my 2-year-old son, this is the amount of information I would want him to have to be successful and happy in life. So it is my life's work. I'm very passionate about it, and I write publicly to get people into the academy. It's free. It's donor. People donate to help cover the cost, and it's been a wonderful experience. I hope people go check it out.
Well, I'm sure they absolutely will. Chris, as Orwell said, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act, and we're just grateful to have you in our camp because, there's precious few truth tellers, and there's a lot of lies to uncover. So, Chris Duane, a.k.a. Silver Shield, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Cool. Awesome. Keep up the good work, man.
All right. You too, buddy. See you.
All right, bye.
Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. And hang in there, because there's a lot of shills and turncoats in our midst, and don't let them shake you from your position. Good night.